Hi, my name is Aaliyah, and if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. For the Halloween season, I'm starting it off by reading a story from this book. This is a book that my dad read to me a lot during my childhood. There's all kinds of stories in it, but there's a whole section in it that is like spooky and scary stories. This book is all about America, American stories. A lot of them that I remember focus on Native American stories. I think there are some Indigenous Canadian stories because it's America, but I think also covers just North America in general. There's also a lot of African American stories, I think going all the way back to slavery. So, this covers a lot of, I think, really important cultural history of our country, and I remember really enjoying this book a lot. And there's like tall tales that you might be familiar with, but also if you ever read the book series that came out a few years ago, I know the first one came out, that was now I'm gonna forget what it was called, but it was punches a hole in the sky or in the world. I read the first one and really liked it, and I'm definitely gonna go back to it at some point. But I really enjoyed that because I actually already knew a lot of those characters from stories that were in here. So like John Henry and Gum Baby, which was one of my favorites from that book, and Briar Rabbit. Like a lot of those characters are stories that are in here, so that I feel like I kind of grew up with. So I don't know if anyone else read this book, but I loved it. And so the story that I'm going to read is called The Peculiar Such Thing, and it says it's retold by Virginia Hamilton. I do not know the history of where the original story came from. I would actually find that really interesting to look up, and I kind of wish I had, because I love history and culture, and my college degree is in anthropology, so the cultural history of where did this story originally come from I'd actually be very interested in. When I read it, it definitely has the feel that it probably came from the American South, is my thoughts, like kind of early, when everything was very rarely inhabited, is kind of my feeling on it, but I'm not completely sure. Just very barely needed content warnings, but I would say maybe just like if you have children, just listen to the story yourself first, just to see if you feel it's too scary for them, I mean, I listened to it as a child, but there is, slight bit of discussion of both animals getting eaten and a person getting eaten up, but nothing is described. There's no goriness or anything. And then the other one is basically just, I'm extra sensitive to any depictions of animal death or animal violence. I don't really think of this as anything bad. I mean, the dogs that are in it are basically just said, like, yeah, something happened to them. It's not described, but, you know, if you think that'll bother you, then just either heads up or just, you know, don't listen to the story. And that's fine. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna go through and read this. A long time ago, way off in the high piney woods, lived a fellow all alone. He lived in a one-room log cabin. There was a big old fireplace, and that is where this fellow cooked his supper to eat it right in front of the fire. One night, after the fellow had cooked and ate his supper, something crept through the cracks of the cabin logs. That something was the most peculiar such thing the fellow ever saw, and it had a great big long tail. As soon as the fellow saw that something with its great big long tail, he reached for his axe. With a swoop and strike with it, he cut the something's tail clean off. The peculiar such thing crept away through the cracks between the logs and was gone. This fellow, like he had no sense, he cooked the great big long tail. Yes, he did. It tasted sweet and he ate it. Goodness, and then he went to bed. In a little while, he went off to sleep. The fellow hadn't been asleep very long before he woke right up again. He heard something climbing up the side of his cabin. It sounded mighty like a cat. He could hear it scratching and tearing away. And pretty soon he heard it say, "Taily-po, taily-po, give me back my taily-po." Now the fellow living there all alone did have some dogs. Big one was best, and the other two slight ones was all right and fair. And when that fellow heard something, he called his dogs. "Dogs, come on," like that. And his dogs come flying out from under the cabin, and they chased the peculiar such thing away down a fair piece. Then this fellow went on back to bed. He went to sleep. It was deep in the middle of the next night when the fellow woke up. He heard something by his front door trying to get in. He listened hard, and he could hear it scratching and tearing away. And he heard it say, "Taily-po, taily-po, give me back my taily-po." Fellow sat up in his bed. He called his dogs. "You best, you all right, you fair, come on in," like that. And the dogs busted around the corner, and they caught up with the peculiar such thing at the gate, and they about broke their own tails trying to catch it. This time, they chased what it was down into the big hollow there. And the fellow, well, he went back to bed and went to sleep. It was way long toward morning. The fellow woke up, and he hears something down in the big swamp. He had to listen. He heard it say, "You know you got it." He heard it say, "You know you got it. I know you know. Give me back my taily-po." That man sat up in bed. He called his dogs. "You best, you all right, and you fair, come on in here." Well, this time the dogs never came. The thing down there in the hollow must have carried them off in there. It must have eaten the first one, says, "That's best." It eaten the other two, says, "That ain't but all right, and that fair." And the fellow went back to bed. Don't see how he could sleep again, but he didn't know how bad off his dogs was by then. Well, it was just daybreak. The fellow was awake, scared. He didn't know why. Must have heard something right there with him in the room. It sounded like a cat climbing up the covers at the foot of his bed. He listened. He could hear it, scratching and tearing away. The fellow looked at the foot of his bed. He seen two little pointy ears coming up over the edge of the bed. In another minute, he seen two big, scary red eyeballs looking straight at him. He can't say nothing. He can't scream. He's too scared to death. That peculiar such thing at the foot of the bed kept on creeping up, by and by. It was right on top of the fellow, and it said in his face in a real low voice, "Taily-po, taily-po, give me back my taily-po." That man loses his voice, loses his power of speech, but finally he can say it. Says, "I hasn't got it. I hasn't got your taily-po." And that something that was there, that peculiar such thing, says right back, "Yes, you has." It jumped on that fellow, and it was fierce. Its big teeth tore at him, made him ribbons. They say it got its taily-po back. Fellow's cabin fall to ruin. It rots. It crumble and it disappear. Nothing left to it in the big woods but the place where it was. And the folks that live near that place say that deep in the night, when the moon is going down and the wind blows across the place just right, you can hear some peculiar such thing calling, "Taily-po, taily-po," like that. And then the sound of it does just fade away with the moonlight, like it never even ever was. And then this is the artwork, so that's supposed to be the creature. And so that's that story. And I know that my videos don't usually reach too much of an audience, but if people do see this and like this, I do want to read some of the other spooky stories from here. So I might see how that goes. I have other videos that I plan to make for this month. Well, it's the end of September now, for October as well. So I just see how that goes. If you liked this video, then please like it. And if you want to see other videos from me, I do book content and then I just post other stuff in between my book content. So I do a lot of my animals is what I post mostly in between. So I guess if you like books and cats and dogs and guinea pigs, then please subscribe. I've just hit 50 subscribers, which isn't a lot for most people, but it's a milestone for me, so I'm happy with that and just trying to hit the next one. So hope you like this. Bye.